Question number one, did you pick up on the presence of any guardian entity or spirit at this cave in Brazil?
Yeah, yeah. I picked up on, I had visuals of seeing people working it. I could see faces, and I could see people working it. I couldn't tell, they weren't wearing any insignias or anything, so I couldn't tell if they were Templars or not. But my feeling was that they were this was an ancient time, and I instinctively felt like it was almost 1200s is what I was kind of keying into. What it was sometime between 1290, that's the original dates I felt were 1290 to 1315, and I think that may have been the time that they were frequenting, going back and forth to Brazil from Portugal at that time.
Mhm. Okay. My second question was, do you feel or know that the medieval Knights Templar inherited some type of knowledge or secrets from ancient Egypt?
Absolutely. Absolutely. From what my research, not just with the Templars, but just in my metaphysical for my PhD, I did in-depth research back into indigenous spiritual belief systems all the way back to Sumer, Mesopotamia, India, Egypt, Tibet. And what I see is that there's been an organization, I guess you could call it. That's sort of a terrible term, but it's a loose term. There's been a group of people that have been bringing forward secrets for thousands and thousands of years. And I believe that this particular time in history is the time when we are going to go through a transfiguration, a paradigm shift in energy, a raising of consciousness. And the Templars were very much a part of this.
Mhm.
The ancient Egyptians were very much a part of this. There has always been the two factions. There is now. I mean, we're seeing the epitome of that right now in the world. We're seeing the people that want to live sustainable lives with the earth, and we're seeing people who want to destroy it. We're
Right.
seeing these greedy corporate, money driven, power driven forces. And then we see the opposite. We see people from all over the world standing up for the environment more than ever. I mean, we really have a push of these two forces right now for who's going to win, I guess you could say. But this struggle has been going on ever since, I think, I think probably 60,000 years from the time we had Atlantis, because Lemuria, where they were the first people, the first civilization, I guess you could call it, 100 and something thousand years ago. Then we have Atlantis join, they develop around 60,000 years ago. They become more technologically advanced. Lemurians are happy to live with the land. They're happy living sustainable lives with the land. That's their way of life. Their descendants are in India, North America, South America, Hawaii, some of the islands, Tibet. Whereas you see the Atlanteans, I think they birthed the Western civilizations, the Romans, the Babylonians, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So we still have this. We're dealing with the descendants and the remnants of this today. And I think that this has been going on for probably thousands of years, tens of thousands of years. And we'll see what happens. But I think that at this point in time, we are preparing for a shift. And I think that the Templars knew it. I think that Cathars knew it. That's why they both made predictions to come back in 700 years. This is 700 years. Here we are. Everything that Leonardo da Vinci was one of my first mentors, other than my father and Maya Angelou, when I was a child. And I mean, these people just drew me like bees to honey. Leonardo da Vinci, I studied everything he wrote, everything. He taught me how to draw. I used all of his sketches to teach myself to draw and paint when I was younger. And um, everything that I can see from him is he saw into the future. These things that he drew, these things, these inventions that he came up with, he saw into the future. He saw that these things were going to be happening in the future. He was a very prophetic, forward thinker. And I think that he was also played a part in this. And now that we're seeing, his designs and some of his paintings and things are being deciphered. You know, Robert, what's his name? Robert Edward Green, I think. Robert Edward Grant and Alan Green are two mathematicians, physicists that anyway, they've been studying Leonardo's work and they found out, they deciphered that the Vitruvian Man actually has measurements in the true drawing. No one had ever taken measurements from the actual drawing. Everyone has always recreated the circle and placed the Vitruvian Man into it. Robert Edward Grant did not. He took the actual circle and did his math from it. He realized that it broke up into, I think it was 1/16 each one of the I'm not a mathematician, but anyway, it broke up into, I think it was 1/16 or 1/14 or whatever, and it correlated to the Great Pyramid. And it predicted that there would be other chambers discovered in the Great Pyramid, and that each one signified one of the chakras in the human body. So no wonder when you go into the King's Chamber in the Great Pyramid, which I've been in there 4 times, you have spiritual out-of-body experiences because it was designed for that. I believe that it was designed for that. So obviously, Leonardo da Vinci was in on this too. He knew, he saw, he was showing us in his designs, he was showing us, he was giving us a map of what we need to learn more about in this particular time in our lives in history. So, who knows, he may be among us at some point, reborn and during this time in history, who knows?
I feel
But
like if I may interject, I feel like the medieval Knights Templar knew something too, because the cross pate, their symbol, is very similar to the shape of the front of a photon wave. So photons are particles, but they also travel in a wave-like fashion. So a wave of light, when you're looking at it as it's coming at you, has the shape of a cross pate.
absolutely. Absolutely. And there's no accident to that. That cross is ancient. You find it all over the world. It's in India, it's everywhere. The most ancient sites I've been to in Native American, I found it it started off here in North America going to archaeological digs with the Sacramento Archaeological Society in 1990. And some of the Native American sites have a similar cross all across North America. So in South America, you find it in India, you find it in Africa, you find it in Japan. I mean, this particular cross is everywhere. And if you follow the work of James Churchward at all, you see that the Lemurians, part of Lemurian community or colonized an area, was on the edge of California, the western edge, the Pacific Ocean edge of California. And so the Chumash people, which is one of the Native American tribal people, along the Chumash territory, there are glyphs, and some of them include a dot and crosses, horizontal and vertical lines. This was what these are signifying. The dot is the dot of the beginning of everything, and the dot spreads out vertically and then it spreads out horizontally, and what do you have? You have a cross.
Mm.
So this is the beginning. This is, above and below. This is moving out and creation of all material of the three-dimensional world. That's what the cross signifies. People think of it as a Christian symbol. Well, yeah, the Christians brought it forward as well, but they just borrowed it. You know, they borrowed it from their ancestors. This cross goes back to the first people that ever started writing symbols. And so, if it's true, if these symbols that James Church were discovered along the Chumash area, if these are Lemurian, then they could possibly go back as 20 to 40 to even 50,000 years.
So
We don't know.
do you think the cross patay that the Templars chose as their symbol, do you think that it symbolizes the way in which light or light energy manifests in this world as as matter?
Absolutely.
Go from light or pure energy, and then it manifests. It takes on form, a shape, a weight, a
Well,
mass.
absolutely, because see, this is where I study in quantum physics. Okay, so what you have is you have sound and light. The Old Testament talks about this. Genesis talks about it. There were light, and then God spoke. There was sound,
Oh, right.
frequency.
Yes.
Everything is made up of frequency. These glasses, my body, your books that are behind you, everything is made up of frequencies. We are hydrogen, nitrogen, oxygen, and carbon, our physical bodies, right? Hydrogen, oxygen, nitrogen are all gases. Carbon is the only thing that gives us physicality. And did you know that if you take an atomic bomb and explode an area, everything that is carbon based, including the human body, becomes photons?
Really? I did not
Absolutely.
know that.
Nuclear physics. Um, yeah, I was really blown away when I found that out. So, what that means is that we become hydrogen, nitrogen, oxygen, and photon, gaseous light. So when we're blown to kingdom come, we no longer have a physical body, but we still exist. Hydrogen, nitrogen, oxygen, photon, light with a soul.
So we come into this world as light. We take our form, made of all these elements that you have mentioned, and then when we're done, we leave those elements behind, and then we return back to light.
Absolutely. And there's even more to this. Okay, when I studied the Old Testament over 200, I read it over 200 times back in the 90s. I discovered that the covenant between material world, the physical world, and the spiritual world is our DNA. Okay, if you think about it, our entire body, ashes to ashes, dust to dust. Okay, our bodies are made up of the biological world, of the material world, of the earth. Okay, when we die, it goes back into the elements. I don't care if you're cremated or whatever, it doesn't matter. If you're buried, you're still going back into the elements and you're recycled into the next bodies.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Then I read a book in 1993, I think it was, by Candace Pert called Molecules of Emotion. And what her theory was that every single piece of matter contains memory. All right, so our bodies were born back into our bodies over and over and over and over and over again, generation after generation after generation. Our bodies not only carry the memory, but our DNA carries the memory.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So we potentially carry the memory of everything that's ever happened from the time of creation to the present time in history. And so, what is the path back to that memory? The conduit is DNA. DNA. That's what Jacob's ladder is about. That's what the story of Jacob is about. If you think about it, Jacob laid down in Bethel. He named it Bethel on a rock. He laid down on a rock. And why did he name it Bethel? Bethel means home. It also means portal.
Oh, really? I didn't know that.
Yeah. So He lays down on a portal, and what does he see? He sees a ladder, and he sees these angels coming up and down a ladder. Well, you can't, these angels must have been minuscule. They must have been, they must have been really tiny, coming up and descending and ascending on this ladder. Well, I think, what are angels? They're light, they're photons. So photons are coming up and down the ladder, becoming physical and going back into the inner dimensions that is not physical. Back and forth, back and forth. He discovered the key was DNA, the ladder. So, what does he do next? All of a sudden, he can manipulate genetics. He turns all the sheeps from his brother spotted and makes his all white or whatever they were. They makes them all one color. So now all of a sudden he's got the ability to manipulate genetics. He has
Mm-hmm.
discovered, yeah, the mystery and the clue of our DNA. So it's my belief. It's what I did my dissertation on. It's my belief that everything that's ever happened, we potentially can recall it, and what triggers these memories is light. Okay, it's like a ping. I feel it. It's like a ping feeling. When I go to another country and I come onto an ancient site and I've had some association with it or whatever, or my body's had some sort of association with it, I get a trigger. It's like a trigger, and I'll either have a visual of a memory of some sort or a strong feeling. This happens in conversations with people that I may have had associations with in past lives. This happens all over the place to me all the time. And I think that everybody potentially has this ability, everybody, but they need to exercise it. It's like a muscle. If you don't exercise that muscle, it's gonna, atrophy. It's gonna start to fade away. So I've been exercising this since I was a little girl. I never shut it off. And when I had the near death experience, which was precipitated by a Sufi master coming to me, not, very like a month before I had this near death experience, and told me my life was going to change, I think that it just downloaded or whatever, something downloaded into me that awoke my body and my mind to where ever since I felt like I've lived in sort of a duality. I live between both worlds, and it's, I've painted it. I have it all over my house in paintings. I've written about this. In the beginning, it was really, I didn't talk about it with anybody. I didn't discuss it. Of course, 33 years ago, nobody talked about that kind of stuff. But I believe now that it's time to talk about it, because I think that other people are having these experiences, and I think that by my being authentic, it gives them permission to do the same.
Mhm. Did your visit to Brazil inspire any Templar art, like
Uh,
paintings?
Not Templar art in particular, no. But what it did was inspire me to look into my own genealogy. And what I discovered was Templar on my father's side. So
So,
I've been
how far back did you have to go? Like, was it a particular century, decade, century? Which
Scotland,
nationality? Scotland? So Scottish
Scotland, yeah.
Templars. Oh,
Scotland,
nice.
and my father's family, they were Danes. They were Scottish from Denmark originally. They came from Denmark and France, and then they migrated from France into Scotland, and then they separated Scotland, England, and went all over the world from there. And that's how we came forward into the United States. But yeah, on my father's side of the family, my coat of arms is a Templar coat of arms.
Beautiful. Have you been to Rosslyn Chapel in Scotland?
Yes. Yeah. Yeah, I've been all over. I traveled Scotland with my husband in 2019, and we met up with a fellow. If you ever go to Scotland and you want a really good guide, Chris Kenosis, you can look him up on Facebook, and he's a fabulous guide. Anyway, we met up with him in Edinburgh, and he took us all over. And he and I actually, with another friend of mine, Vivian, we went into Temple, the little town of Temple. And from that point, I started photographing all the Templar graves in Temple and everywhere I went, all through in the Orkneys and, into Stromness and all over. I was photographing Templar graves from that point. So,
Oh, beautiful.
yeah,
Well, you sound like a very aware person who is in touch with herself in a way that goes like deeply into the past. A lot of people don't have such memories, the kind
no,
that you do. And especially if you're aware of something like um, Qatar past life, which probably came with a ton of trauma.
yeah,
That's bound to trigger some events in this life too. So that maybe that past trauma can resolve itself in this time at this place when you have that awareness and power to change your destiny. Because
absolutely.
as a Qatar in the 1200s or 1300s, you would not have had the power to change your destiny, right?
No, but they knew that they believed in reincarnation, and I think they knew they were coming back. They knew you couldn't destroy the body after having my near death. And then going through the liver issues that I went through for 17, 20, well, almost 20 years before I had the transplant in 2015. Um, I'm not afraid of death. I'm not afraid, and I understand now in a different context that when the Cathars were all burned at the stake, that was an excruciating way to die. It was a horrible way to die. But at the same time, when you meet death, it's a very different experience than being afraid of it and running from it. It's a very different. It's an enlightening experience. It's peaceful. You're just transforming from one form to another. You know that you're being transformed. That's all it is. You're not dying. The essence of who you are, your soul, your spirit, is not dying. The only thing that you're sloughing off is the physical body. That's all and you can come back and get another one. so, they knew this. They knew this, and many of them were in that state. Not all of them, but many of them were in that state and were very aware at the time of their death that they were going to be coming back and that there was going to be a time in history that things were going to change.
And
So I think,
you also mentioned that when you were inside the dungeon at Dome in France, that you felt, among other things, a sense of peace. So
absolutely,
perhaps the Templar prisoners, some of them had reached that state of inner peace where they
yeah,
accepted what was happening and they were not resisting it internally, and maybe they were
right.
even ready for it to, like, because death is a release, right?
Yes, it is. It's a release. I've been with enough people when they passed that it is a very peaceful experience. It's very peaceful. And at the moment when before that breath that you breathe out, I don't know if you've ever been with anyone when they pass, but at the moment of death, there's this last breath that comes out. And at that moment is the most peaceful moment that you can ever even imagine. It's like a birth. It's like being present at a birth. And it's a beautiful, beautiful moment. It's really beautiful moment to share with people. I was with my father, in 2019 when he passed. I was with my grandmother when she passed. I've been with numerous people when they've passed, friends and people I barely know, But it's really it's an honor because it's a really beautiful experience.
It's interesting that you mentioned breath, because when we are born, when we come out of our mother's womb as babies, we take a breath, right? There's first breath that we take, and we start crying, right? And then you live your life, and at the end, we give up our last breath.
You
So
give it back. Yeah,
we
yeah,
draw it, and then we we release it.
yeah, yeah. Yeah, it's like full circle, it's the full circle of the experience. the whole life experience, of that first breath and then the giving of that breath again, giving it out as the closure before being birthed into the spiritual realm.
I love
It's
it.
beautiful.
And so you can picture the Templars in the late 1200s, early 1300s as maybe taking a new, fresh breath and starting a new life, a new chapter on a new
Mhm,
shore in a new
mhm.
country.
And I don't think it was just in South America and Brazil. I know that the Templars in Portugal and Tomar were they interacted with the Ethiopian king and the Ethiopian people, and they're also back and forth in Jerusalem. And there's evidence of them in India that they actually traveled to India. They were in all through Europe. Now I'm being told that there's evidence of them in Japan, which is like blows my mind. And that's I'm going to be going to Japan the year after next. My stepmother and I are going there. My father was a haiku poet. He was a professor, but in his later years, he was a nationally known haiku poet. So they're doing a ceremony for him in Japan. They had to wait for this COVID to get over. So I'm going to be going there to do a eulogy for my father in Japan. So I'm starting. People are sending me pictures of Templar crosses in Japan. So, okay, so that in North America, South America, Japan, Africa, all through Europe, we've got signs of Templar evidence. Why? I think they were colonizing. They were leaving and they were themselves, many of the Templars, especially the original 9 to 11 Templars, I believe that they were of the families of Jesus and Mary themselves, many of them.
Mhm.
So I think they were colonizing the world with the descendants of Jesus and Mary Magdalene.
Reseeding the bloodline
Absolutely.
back to life.
Mhm. Yeah. Yeah, and and it would also figure that the Cathars were probably many of them were also descendants. I mean they were all through Europe, especially by that time frame. They were there's millions of descendants at this point in time.
Mhm. It's interesting that you mentioned Templar crosses in Japan. I spoke with Gretchen Cornwall, an American author who writes about Templars, a while
Yeah, I
back.
know.
And oh, good, you know her. Oh, good.
Yeah, we're connected. Yeah, yeah.
Oh, great. So she investigated a site in Wisconsin, which was discovered by Wayne Murphy, Mohican policeman, and they are
Mhm.
still conducting research of the site. And her hypothesis is that the Templars who reached Wisconsin didn't stop there, but perhaps continued west. She thought they were crossing North America to reach Asia. So maybe it happened. Maybe they did reach the west coast of North America and then sailed to Japan, although they would have needed ships for that. So, yeah, we have to think that through. But
Yeah, well, you do. You have to think it through, and I'm waiting to when I go to Japan. I'm really interested to see these symbols that, and of course, find out what the dating. It just was given to me not very long ago. It's like within the last week. So I have people send me stuff all the time now. And I read through the stuff and see if there's anything to it, and if it pings, if I get that ping, then I know I need to pay attention. It's like, oh, okay, you need to follow this lead, you need to check this out. So who knows what I'm going to find when I go to Japan. I mean, I wouldn't be a bit surprised at this point. Anything that happens in my life, I would not be a bit surprised.
so, what would you like to see happen or come out of your discovery um, in Brazil? You obviously are writing a book. There will probably be a second documentary. And um, where do you think this is all going?
Well, I think it's helping people to find truth because there's been so many. History has misguided mankind for so long. And I don't think that's by accident either. I think that there was some intention behind that. I mean, we've had to dig, really dig, myself and other researchers in the last 30 years. I mean, this really kind of triggered with Eric Van Daniken. You know, he was one of the first at Chariots of the Gods. You know, he wrote that. And that really kind of set things off for alternative historical discovery. Um, and that's when we really started getting, you started seeing people get on board with researching truth rather than just accepting what they read in the, you know, in the history books in the academy or wherever the institution they go to. And ever since then, we have made more discoveries, archaeological discoveries. I mean, they're almost exponentially being discovered from that time, since that time. I mean, we're finding them weekly. They're all over. I mean, it's constant now, it's constant. So, what I hope to convey to people is these truths and wake up, you know, wake something up in them, because they're built, we're all the same, we're all connected, we're all part of the same, you know, the same thing, all part of the same body of God, I guess you could call it, or whatever, for whatever belief system you have. But we're all part of that, and we all want the same things. We want to be loved, we want to live in peace, we want to prosper, and we want to enjoy our lives, you
Mm-hmm.
know, and we want to continue to evolve. I mean, that's, everybody pretty much wants the same thing. And we've been stuck in the last several hundred years in this perpetuated robotic almost motion of being born, being indoctrinated, going to school, getting an education, having you know, getting married, having 2.5 children, and a career, and then finding yourself lost, you know, in your 40s and 50s, and going, where did my life go and what am I doing? You know, I have this house and I have these cars and I have whatever around me, but it doesn't mean anything. And so more and more people are starting to question, you know, they're really waking up and they're starting to question. So the people like me who just have this inner urge or whatever it is, this destiny to uncover these truths, it also comes with responsibility to share that truth. And that's my intention, is to share, simply share what I discovered with other people. And they can do with it what they want, you know. They can disregard it completely, or they can maybe develop their own quest, you know, for truth. Who
Oh,
knows?
okay. I also want to ask you this. Who do you think the Knights Templar really were? Because it sounds to me like they were much more than just warrior monks.
Absolutely. Absolutely. There was a core, you know, just like any other organization, there was a core that were carried forward the spiritual belief systems. If you could think of it like a brotherhood of light, you know, there is actually an organization called that, but if you think of it as an organization of a brotherhood of light that's come forward, my belief is it's coming all the way forward from Lemuria, from Lemurian times, and it's constantly keeping that spark of light alive within them, within the population of the time and history that they live in, and it's constantly bringing forward to a time when that can be ignited amongst all human beings, all of humanity. And I think the Templars, that core of Templars, I think they knew this. They had a specific agenda. I think that there were treasures, and I think that there were, you know, ancient texts, ancient. They, who knows? They may even have discovered the secrets of Solomon. I don't know, but they were involved with the Ethiopian king. And there's a lot of evidence that leads us to believe that the Ethiopian king is a descendant of Solomon, Solomon's son, and the Queen of Sheba came together. The Kabra Nagast, if you read that, the Ethiopian Bible, there's another Ethiopian Bible, but if you read those, it gives you some background information with the Bible. Sheba sent her son to meet his father, Solomon, when he was of age, so we don't know what that age was, and comes back with the Ark of the Covenant. There is also a temple in Ethiopia uh, that has been cared for by one single family all the way forward since that time frame that they claim to be protecting the Ark of the Covenant. So why were these Ethiopians involved with the Templars in Portugal? You know, I mean, what's the reason? What's the reason? I think that they either had possession of the Templars themselves, or they were somehow involved in keeping the Ark of the Covenant safe um, for this time in history that we're in now. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if it doesn't show up all of a sudden. You know, one of my places that I'm going to be going to for because I'm doing a series of documentaries. I'll be doing the second documentary. Hopefully, will be coming out as soon as I get back from Brazil, and then I'm going to be going back to France. I'm going back to Portugal again. I'm going to go into Spain. I want to go into Sardinia, and I'm going to go back into Turkey, and I want to go back into the Cappadocia area where the not Templars, but I believe that the families that preceded the Templars may even have been descendants who left Jerusalem in the first to third century. They settled in Cappadocia in the caverns in the mountain underground. And there are numerous crosses, but amongst them is also a Templar cross on the, yes, on the chapels in Cappadocia. So I'm going there, and then I'm going back to Ethiopia and Jerusalem. So I will be taking the viewers to all of these places when I go, and talking about the connections and the discoveries that connect the Templars to these places.
Well, that's fantastic. Oh, I just got goosebumps. I feel like I have met a carrier of light, and that's you.
Yeah. Well, uh, for whatever reason, this is my life's destiny. This is what I'm here to do. So I'm fulfilling it. And what's really nice about that is that when you're fulfilling what you're supposed to be doing, you feel fulfilled. You don't you don't yearn for something anymore. You just know that you're doing what you need to be doing. You know you're doing what you're supposed to be doing. So what the Sufi master, when I was 18, I had another Sufi master come to me when I was 18 also. He said that at the end of my life, I would deal with a lot of, trauma and things, which has all happened, everything he said, health issues, etc., which I have had. And he said, at the end of my life, I would fulfill my heart's desire, is the way he worded it. And I feel like that's what I'm doing now. I am living my heart's desire.
That's wonderful. If I could send you back in time
Mhm.
to that time period during which Templars were in Brazil carrying this cross over that cave, what would you ask them about? What would you want to know?
I would just sit down and have a conversation with them about their agenda and about what they were doing there at that time, and maybe even to show me anything that would help me on my quest,
Mhm.
uh, to expose those truths or whatever they wanted me to say to the world today. That's what I would do. I'd just have a long conversation with them about that, and be open to whatever they wanted to share with me.
Oh, that's beautiful. I think you would fit right in with them.
Yeah. Yeah, I do too, actually. I've been in the Amazon jungle myself with the Amazon tribes, and in 2000, I was at 12 or 13. I was in the Amazon jungle for a few weeks, and it's beautiful. So I could see very easily how the Templars integrated with them, uh, and were compatible with them energetically, because they're beautiful people. They're really beautiful people.
Mhm. Mhm. Nice. Okay. Is there anything else that you would want people to know about your future plans or your discoveries so far that we haven't covered yet?
Well, No, not really. I think I've pretty much covered everything. Oh, there is one more thing that I did find out about in my research in the Rosicrucian Library. I did find out that there was an order of knights in 586 BC during the time of the building of the Second Temple that came forward all the way to 70 AD when the temple was destroyed. There were a group of knights. They were founded by Zerubbabel at the time to protect the builders of the temple. So um, I have some of the family names from the original knights in the 1100s, and I'm trying to do a comparative study. Of course, that's been stopped with this COVID also because I can't get back into the Rosicrucian Library for one thing. They don't have anything digitalized yet. So I'm pursuing that line as well. And all of this information is going to be in my book. My book is done, and I'll be writing additional books, of course, because there'll be different additional information. But my book should be coming out. It's my Grail quest that led me to discovery of the Templar Cave in Brazil. Is the title, and I just encourage people to watch the documentary and continue to stay tuned for more documentaries. You know, they can look at my website at templarsInBrazil.com, and they could also reach me at my email at templarsinbrazil@gmail.com, and just continue to tune in to what I'm going to be bringing forward.
That's good. Thank you so much. I want to commend you for your courage and openness to see things in a new way, new light, and not just recycle information that has been around for a long time, but present it in a new way, in a new light.
Yeah. Well, we have a lot of emphasis on the Templars right now. We have this new program, the Lost Relics, which is fabulous. I'm so excited because there's a lot of energy being put into the Templars right now, and they are, they're unfolding, they're uncovering the relics, and they're actually going to a lot of the places that I've gone to and that I'm going to as well. From their perspective, from a male perspective, which is fabulous. So what I'm doing is I'm doing it from a feminine perspective, from a woman's perspective, a researcher, boots on the ground, which isn't normal. I mean, it's not usual. I mean, most women don't like to be out in that kind of environment. But so I'm doing it from a different perspective, and I think the more the merrier. We have Gretchen in North America, we have Sean Williamson in Scotland, and numerous other people. Um, and we have all these people at this time that are bringing these things forward. We have Graham Hancock and, Freddie Silva, and Freddie and I are on the same page on so much. After reading his books, I've just I was amazed at the amount of research that he did, and he filled in so many holes for me in my own research. And we have Andrew Collins, and we have all these people during this time frame right now. Brian Forrester, that are bringing forward all these truths, and I think it's fabulous. I'm just so excited to be alive and sharing this freely. Finally, I feel like for the first time in thousands of years. I mean, who knows how long it's been since we've been able to freely discuss this on the internet, on television. I mean, if you look at the television today, the History Channel, Discovery Channel, Gaia, Netflix even, they're all filled with programming about Templars, about UFOs, about just all sorts of things that people didn't even dream of discussing. You didn't have these conversations 30 years ago. This
No,
just wasn't.
no, certainly not. Well, and it was a woman who helped exonerate the Knights Templar, Barbara Frail, who worked in the secret Vatican archives, and she was the one who found the Chinon parchment. Without her discovery, Templars would still be heretics, right?
Exactly. Yeah, I was really excited by that discovery. I really was discovered by her discovery. And it did show that that so much was buried, so much truth has been buried. And I think we're not just doing that on a global level in our history, but we're also doing it in our own bodies. Our own bodies are giving up their secrets today, and we are cleansing ourselves. We're cleansing our earth. We're cleansing our own bodies. We're bringing forth truth for the first time in hundreds, thousands of years, thousands of years. I mean, this is really a beautiful time to be alive. Of course, we have the faction that's trying to stuff it down as fast as they can. They want to control the earth. They've been controlling it for many years, many, many years, centuries. They've been the ones that have been, we've been supporting their lifestyles and they're liking it. They don't want it to change. But at the same time, we have the majority of the world who are waking up and they don't want to live like this anymore. They want truth. They want to live authentically. And this is a joyful feeling. I mean, once you start on this path of moving towards authenticity, you don't want to stop because it feels better and better and better the more real you become. And that triggers other people and it gives other people permission to do the same thing. So the more people we have that are bringing these truths to the forefront, I'm all for it. I don't think we can have too many.
Wow, well, this conversation has covered so many different angles of the Templar topic. Thank you from the bottom of my heart. Thank you also for sharing your own beliefs with me. I see that you are on a quest. I have no doubt about it, and I can't wait to read your book, see the next documentary or series of documentaries, and I hope that you can go back to Brazil and physically explore all the three caves. You said that there are three locations, and I
Right.
would be interested to know what's in the center of that triangle.
I think it's the people. The people. If you go into Alto Paraíso, you go into Moino, you go into San George, which is St. George, by the way, and Cavalcante, you're going to find people from all over the world. It is the only place in South America where you will find that many different people from all over the world. I walk down the street in Brazil and in Alto Paraíso down the main street, and I'll be talking to someone from Germany who's moved there. I have a masseuse from Japan. There's a woman from France that owns this little shop that I like to visit at. There's some American people. There's people from India. There's people from Ethiopia. There's people from Japan. They're all over the world. And they've come into Alto Paraíso. It's a magnet for people. They say, once you come to Alto Paraíso, you will never ever go away for good. You'll return. You will always return to Alto Paraíso. And everybody that I talk to, they say the same thing. If they haven't moved there, at least they come back. They come back. And I was going back every single year until the COVID hit. I was going back to Brazil every year. So I think that what the Templars set out to do there has happened. And it's happened within this triangular space that, that they inhabited, that they set a grid according to this one woman who said that they actually set a grid there with an intention to draw people to colonize that area. People can do it. And we really need to get to that point in our evolutionary path as a community, as a world global community, or we're going to destroy ourselves. If the Atlanteans have their way, the descendants of the Atlanteans have their way, we're going to move towards another destruction, which is what happened in Atlantis.
Mhm.
I don't
All
want to move
right.
towards.
So
Yeah,
let's wish for world peace, I guess. World peace.
absolutely.
I think we can do it. I agree. I think it's time.
I do too. I think there's enough people that are on board at this point. There's enough people who are awake, and I think that it's very, very possible that we can do this.
Wonderful. Wonderful. So this is probably the sweet spot where we can end our interview. Thank you so much. This was so much more than I expected and hoped for. So I thank you for this gift from you. It's a gift of knowledge and enlightenment.
Yeah, you're quite welcome. I really enjoyed it. It was really nice to meet you too, Alessandra.